Accomplishment, meaning that it's not given to you, it's earned. If someone hands me $1 million, like that's not success. I may enjoy it.
It's luck.
Success is earned. Okay. So accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment, because, and I've learned this the hard way, you can check all the boxes of goals and all these metrics and be miserable at the same time. Your listeners have to know that if you are going to go about winning and success by operationalizing integrity and doing it the right way.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring the best and the brightest in the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career forward. Folks, I have a great one today. My guest on the podcast is Nick Lavery, a true American hero. He's an active duty Green Beret and a true embodiment of grit, resilience, and service. After surviving a devastating insider attack in Afghanistan in 2013 that resulted in the loss of his leg, Nick made the extraordinary decision to return to operational status, becoming the first Special Forces operator to redeploy to combat as an above-the-knee amputee. Refusing medical retirement, he went into intense rehabilitation and rigorous assessments before rejoining his unit in 2015. This dude came back. He went on to make military history not only through his return to combat, but also by completing elite training programs, including Special Forces Warrant Officer course and the Combat Diver Qualification course, feats never before achieved by an amputee. Beyond the battlefield, Nick has continued his mission of service and leadership. He is the founder and CEO of Precision Components, LLC, a company dedicated to enhancing performance of individuals and organizations through training and strategic development. A decorated warrior with honors like Silver Star, multiple Purple Hearts, and the Bronze Star with Valor. He is also a best-selling author, Objective Secure, a practical guide to achieving audacious goals. Above all, Nick is a dedicated husband, father, driven by a profound sense of purpose and relentless commitment to living life without compromise. Nick Lavery, welcome to the podcast, man.
Adam, thanks for having me on, brother. It's been a minute in the making, so I'm glad we finally got here.
It's been a minute in the making, and I appreciate it. So I first met you on Scott McGregor's Outlier Project. You came in and you talked to our community there. You shared your story, which I just talked about in the introduction. So we're not going to go back into that. It's one of these things. Listen, that is your story. You own it. You can't go back. You can't change it. And that's the narrative there. But to spend every single podcast going back and regurgitating the same thing, I think as a podcaster, there's better use of time with someone with your incredible experience and knowledge there. But the first thing I want to ask you, you mentioned something on Scott's show that there's a better way. When I have folks in the military on, everyone's inclined to say thank you for your service. For your service. And I believe you mentioned something on Scott's that there's, yes, of course, that's appreciative and everything. But for anyone out there, when we're showing our gratitude towards the men and women and folks in our fine military, what is the best way for a civvy to show gratitude?
Amazing question. Great way to start this. I do want to be sensitive to the fact that saying thank you for your service, whether that's to me or anyone else in the uniform or wore the uniform, I think is a great thing. So I don't want to misconstrue what I'm going to say here, because I think it's important. We live in an amazing society where most people, regardless of your political affiliation, your ideology, like all these things that make us different, most of us are appreciative of our military service members, and that's a phenomenal thing to express. Can't go wrong. That said, I would say if you really want to show me appreciation or any of the fellow people I get to work alongside of, or those that served in the past beyond me and before me, I would say take full advantage of the freedoms and the opportunities that you have every single day, as at least a direct result, partly being from what we do as United States service members. Those of us that have remained in this bubble known as the United States of America lack a lot of perspective of what it's like outside this bubble. And that's to be totally understood. I get it.
We haven't had that life experience.
No. And you can't really expect someone to have that level of perspective when like this is all they've known. So this becomes normal. But when you live a life that extends far outside our borders, from first world, fully developed nation states to fourth world, war-torn disaster zones and everything in between, it really gives you this amazing gift where you can see how special and unique this place really is. And we are an imperfect system. We will continue to make mistakes.
Oh, we're still
We'll
free.
continue to argue and debate. And that's part of being a human. I get that. But we do have unique opportunities here as citizens of the United States of America. So if you want to express gratitude towards me, which is appreciated, it's take full advantage of the opportunities you have. Live your life to the absolute fullest. That to me would be the greatest means of saying thank you.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah on that one. Let me ask you a question here. Your first time in active duty, when you went over to a country or a region that was not free, that was not the United States, what was that first eye opener that you saw for the first time? You're like, shit, that would never happen. I am not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
Yeah, my first trip overseas was to Afghanistan, and I had been on the teams for I think 5 6 months, maybe not even that. So it was a quick turnaround, and I went into that experience without a whole lot of expectations. And your teammates that have been there before do their best to kind of prepare you, but you just got to kind of do it, and you learn very quickly, almost like drinking through a fire hose of all
Yeah.
this stuff that you try to take in. It can be really overwhelming. So that was my first glimpse, really, outside of the U.S. and it's a shock. So it's certainly a lot different a way of life for everyone that's over there. And 2010 is a very different Afghanistan that it is
Right.
today, and it's
Different
changed over the
political
years.
climate.
But so it is wildly different. You have people that are living day to day life inside of a house that is made from the ground, and that's totally normal for them. There's nothing outside There's nothing unusual about that. That's it. This is
That's their
just how
life.
they live. And we see a pile of dirt, literally a pile of dirt with like an opening in it, like a cave. And for us, it's like, good Lord, this is how you live. But for them, it's totally normal. So there are, of course, wild differences. But I will say, not that you asked this, Adam, but I will add to it
Please.
that there's also a lot of similars. A lot of
Like what?
similarities. You're talking about human beings at the end of the day.
Values, right? Values, family.
Their values can, of course, be different, but can have different values than you. And
Yeah.
we're both, here in the United States. So general themes amongst human beings that you see in most places, I would say all, but that's a strong term, is people want to pursue fulfillment. People want to feel a sense of purpose. People want to have pride with what they do. People want to take care of their families, So like these undeniable themes that exist across human boundaries or ideologies or certainly geographic locations were things that started to jump out to me very, very quickly. So underneath the shell of the chaos and the combat and the death and the carnage, you got human beings, and most of us are trying to pursue the same things in our circumstances.
And I love that perspective. And just to add more perspective to everyone out there, I mean, listen, it's you're not in combat all the time and on these missions. Some of them are more just peacekeeping or monitoring type of situations. I love if you just share like a little anecdote, maybe on one of those first times you were overseas and you were actually interacting with the people there and trying to build I don't know if trust is the right word, but rapport and understanding. Because listen, you're an invader no matter what. Like even if you're there to protect them, you're still an outside force coming in. But maybe that first time you connected with a local villager, the first time you like really had that human one-to-one connection and it opened up your mind.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we are an outside entity that's coming in,
Right.
and you're putting most of these people in between a rock and a hard place. It's a
Right. Now they're a
really
target
tough
when you're there.
spot to be
Yeah.
in, and like they know with a degree of certainty that we're not going to be there forever. Where the United States were to remain persistent in Afghanistan, as an example, indefinitely, which of course isn't happening, or like just me as an individual or my 12-man team in this one spot at one time, like we're going to move on. And so that's a hard place to be in. And we can come in, and certainly I had this vantage point as a brand new junior operator where I'm like, I'm here to help you, just do what I say, and it's going to work in your benefit. So it takes a while to kind of get that experience and that perspective of, at the end of the day, like these guys have seen us come and go, and then they're there, they're staying, and like here comes some potential consequences. So it certainly isn't clear cut. It's not black and white, and it's not all that simple for them to deal with. But to answer your question, it's for me, it was really awakening with the kids, like with young people. And like you want to talk about similarities across all of the things that make us different.
Kids.
When you were talking to a 7-year-old, like at the end of the day, like it's a 7-year-old. They're interested in the same things. They have no filter. They say what they think. They let it go. They want to have fun. They're playing around with stuff. It's like, man, you have no idea what the rest of the world is doing. Certainly not in the United States. Like, I didn't have kids back then like I do now, but the kids really was, I'd say, the entry point for me to open up my eyes and recognize that these are people and they're dealing with very similar challenges like the rest of us.
I can't even imagine, man. Are there any like I don't know how much content you consume media wise. Like, are there any like TV shows or movies out there that are like that are real, like the most realistic example of what it's really like? Have any of them really done that good of a job? Like I watch. I
Oof.
don't know if you watch like the Old Man on Paramount,
Mhm.
right? With Jeff Bridges in that one, or Lioness, or any of these out there. I'm like, how accurate are these?
I'll tell you, I don't watch a lot of television these days.
That wasn't
I
even a
do.
question I was going to ask. I'm just curious.
No, I do. I watch movies. I watch television. I
Okay.
think, as someone who's done this for almost 20 years, it's easy for us to watch a movie and be like, this is silly. Like,
That's not how it
that
works.
guy hasn't reloaded his rifle once and he just shot like
Right.
800 rounds. Like,
Right,
it's
and
just
how
like,
is that guy immune? How do you not got the insane machine gun fire? Okay, not one bullet? Come on, man.
yeah. So we can nitpick this stuff all day long. And I get it. I'm guilty of it at times too.
Of
The,
course.
the point is it's most of it's for entertainment. Even ones that are trying to tell a true story. Oftentimes you do get that kind of quote unquote Hollywoodism flair to it. I will tell you one that jumps out to me as at least being accurate in closer to accurate is the movie Zero Dark 30,
Yeah.
which is based on the Bin Laden raid. And while it's a Hollywood movie, it's not exactly in sequential order what exactly happened. But the raid itself, what I like to highlight, the raid itself, when SEAL Team 6 was going in that scene, which is a long scene in that movie, what you see is how slow and methodical the teams are working. That's like usually around the pace in which we're progressing through a target. A lot of Hollywood, it's like barrel rolls and do ninja flips and
Yeah, they're
like
trying to speed it up for entertainment value.
zipping through
That's not the
stuff
way
and
it
it's like
works.
done real fast. It's like, no, it's way slower in real life, even when you're that good, like SEAL
Yeah.
Team 6. Like, they are phenomenal at what they do. It's a lot slower. And what I also like about that particular scene and that particular movie is some of the mistakes that they run into, some of the challenges that they run into when they're trying to breach a door. Boom, explosion goes off and nothing happens. It's like a failed breach. It's like, well, shit,
What
we
do
were
you
going to
do?
come this way. Well, now we can't get in. So now they got to start figuring out, like, how are we going to get in without crossing into their sector of fire? Like, that's a very realistic example or two of what real combat is like in those scenarios. You put together a game plan, you X's and O's, you chop it up. It's like it never happens that way. You know,
I mean, isn't that so cliche? But it's true. But the planning is the preparation. The planning is the fallback. The planning is to have the discipline, right, and to trust your team. I mean, if I take one thing away from any of these Hollywood movies or TV shows, it's that trust factor, right? You're only as good as the guy behind you and in front of you. Like, your life is in their hands.
huge component, I would argue, to life in general, and certainly when you get into small team environments, and certainly when you get into small team environments when it's life or death scenarios, is trustworthiness. I would put trustworthiness as the number one. It's tough to say. I would put it definitely towards the top of what you are looking for in a key asset to bring them into that type of world. It's trustworthiness, even more so than ability.
Skill set.
And the irony of that is we've got countless metrics that can test and evaluate a person's ability, how fast they can run, how accurate they can shoot a rifle, how much they can deadlift. Like, we can break down human performance into a
Right.
whole
You could
bunch
you
of
could
numbers,
quantify that.
quantify it very
Right.
easily. To quantify trustworthiness is really difficult to do, but most high performing organizations would put that over individual performance any day of the week.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, let's yeah, I mean, I'm going off script here. Like, trustworthiness in any type of relationship is built on reputation and proof in the pudding. Right. I always kind of say, right, like when someone refers to me from a business perspective, or when I have a great friend, be like, hey, Nick, you got to meet my friend Tommy over here. Like, if you build a relationship with me and you trust me and my values, and I've proven you right along the way, you're going to have that inherent trust. But trust is built on actual results.
Hmm.
I mean, I always give people, like, the initial idea of trust, not all the trust in the world, but you can't do that when it's a life and death situation. Like, do you rely on, hey, I work with this guy or gal in this unit? I work, like, do you rely on the people that you've already have established relationships with? It's a
I'll tell
tough
you,
one.
man,
A
and
tough one.
this may be a polarizing perspective on this,
Give
but
it,
I would
please.
argue And I would agree with the easy cliche statement that trust is earned. Most of us would probably agree with that. And to your point, there's objective proof that demonstrates my ability to put my trust into this person based on performance and effort and what they've done. I would agree with that. The caveat I would say is as it pertains to leadership, as it pertains to influence, as it pertains to working with and through others, which is literally the task of the United States Army Special Forces. We are built to work with and through other people, meaning that it would be essentially impossible or at least incredibly unlikely for us to go solve a problem unilaterally, meaning just us. So, like us 12 guys to go do something, just us. There's a lot of special operations unit that do that way very, very well. We work with and through others, which puts us into the relationship business. That's the business that we're in. I would argue, as it pertains to trust, that in order to enable and to empower and to work through others as a leader, you have to put a degree of trust into that person or that group from the very beginning, from day one, versus me in a leadership position that is earned. They don't have to trust me at all on day one. On day one, I have to trust them at least a little bit. Otherwise, I'm just doing things myself and we're no longer working with and through. This is no longer leadership. This is no longer influence. So while I would argue it is a two-way street, in the onset, it's slightly different.
The
That
pendulum is
traffic
shifted
isn't
in the
moving
beginning.
in the same speed both ways. And that's the inherent risk that we have to take as leaders, as team members, certainly as Green Berets. We're going to put a sense of trust, not essentially, 10 out of 10, but a sense of trust into this person, into this group from day one, and then they can earn more over time.
All right. So Nick, in your civilian life, how do you take the lessons learned on how to evaluate and establish trust and put that into business and personal relationships in civilian life?
Well, I think it's done, the exact same way. Certainly the risk gets diminished when you go into a combat zone with things blowing up and bullets zipping over your head versus a boardroom or into my living room where I'm trying to do that with my wife and my kids. But I think the process is still the same. And I think you start conceptually at that same exact point where if I decide I decide, that's a key word. I choose to be a leader in my home or in my business. I make that conscious choice. That means that I have to deploy a sense of trust into the people around me from the very beginning. From there, it's going to move over time. It goes up, it goes down, it goes backwards based on the proof or lack thereof of effort by the individual. And then I have to decide how I want to correct that, influence that, mitigate that, own that, take accountability on myself, failure to communicate, failure to give clear, concise guidance, these things. So
with the accountability of trust on my side, did I do a right way of establishing someone to give them the room to trust, right? That's a little self-awareness action in there
if
too.
You're not actually empowering or enabling others, then how is it that they can give you the proof? So you have to, hey, here's my desired end state. Here's the intent. Here's the reason. Here's what I'd like you to do. I could be talking to my 7-year-old or I could be talking to our CMO in my company. It doesn't really make a difference. Now, like language and communication style, 7-year-old versus a 40-year-old, two different things. But at the end of the day, I have to give that individual my intent, an expanded purpose, a desired end state, and then I have to give them the freedom of maneuver to go mess it up or at least go give it a shot. And that's because that's how that, I think, track record is earned.
I'm kind of smirking along the way. You have a 7-year-old, I have a 7-year-old.
Awesome.
I have a 7-year-old boy, and we spent the weekend together. Mom and daughter were away this weekend, and we brought out hard. Little man ate pizza 3 times on Saturday. I didn't give a shit. I think he had 8 glasses of soda. Who gives a fuck, right? Like girls are gone. Let's live it up, right? Like let's have a good time, right? But what I saw though was like this wall came down, and I don't know what it was, man. It was just, you get it, man. It was just special. It was just some dude time. We were joking around and everything, and I think that's the moment, right? Like, one of the things you talk about is life is finite. I want to get into it in a little bit, and I'm getting to the point in a minute here, but I want to talk about kids and everything because I think that's kind of why we do everything, right? And your objective change when you're in the military, you did it for the country, right? You did like for all those reasons why you did it. But then the second, I tell everyone who has it, the second your first child enters this universe, your life will never be the same again.
Yeah, it's true,
right? Your mortality, the reason why you do things. And anybody listening here, I shared Nick's story in the upfront there of his, it's not an accident. We don't call it a fucking accident. It was the attack, right? What was that first eye-opening moment of your own mortality when you woke up?
Yeah, at that point in my career, Adam, I really had to come face to face with my humanity before that point. And
Did you
thankfully, I
feel
think I
invincible?
did.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but did you feel invincible before that?
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, in the onset, quite a bit. Almost like an extreme case of this like superhero complex where you go through all this advanced training, you get this green beret, you are now John Rambo reincarnated. Like I was very
Can't even
stereotypical,
imagine that. Yeah.
kind of arrogant, hyper confident, into the realm of cocky. Like all I need is a ride and I will take care of this whole global war and terrorism problem you guys had for the last 5, 6 years. Like consider it
That
done.
was you.
That was kind of me, man. And that's not totally uncommon, especially with younger team guys. Like, and you almost want that sense of confidence and fire and aggressiveness in these younger
But
guys.
how do you balance confidence versus cockiness and ego, right? Like that, you have to get there, right?
You do have to get there.
Yeah.
The short answer to the question, I would say, is humility, which is earned over time. It's sharpened over time. It's weaponized and operationalized over time. And that's where you see the seniors and truly, I would say, the absolute greatest, like the greats, all have that undeniable theme of humility and a very firm control of the flip of the switch
Hmm.
between when to turn it up, when to turn it down. But at the end of the day, I'm talking about some of the most lethal, savage human beings that have ever walked the face of the earth. I've worked alongside some of these guys, not just Green Berets, but Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, three-letter agencies from the United States and others. Like these are men that are capable of performing enormous amounts of violence and aggression on behalf of a cause
Yeah.
with all the cliche, the beards and the
Yeah.
Copenhagen and the tattoos and the muscles. And then at the same, that same dude will give you the shirt off his back. He'll ask you a question about your son and genuinely care and want to listen. He's coachable, right? He's got a degree of honesty, self-awareness. He deploys gratitude. Like these ingredients of humility exist within these ultra high performers. I just think it takes a little bit of time to learn how to do that. So it exists, but for
Yeah.
me as a young team guy coming in with that kind of mentality, it took a while for that to set in on me. And thankfully, I had some amazing older senior guys around me to hold me accountable and really let me know that, hey, man, you can do some things and you got some capability, but you got a lot to figure out here.
Did humility come? We're talking about, life is finite, but did the humility come when your eyes opened?
No,
And
I
you
think,
realized the predicament you were in.
yeah, I had already had a sense of that was growing and developing. I was awake and conscious during the entire attack that I went through. I mean, I was like actively working on myself and talking to teammates. And as I was laying there bleeding out, dying, and I knew with every ounce of me as a being that this was my last day on earth. I was convinced, man, no matter what I did, this is where this was going to end. Now, it doesn't mean that you just stay in the clouds and you roll over and die. Like I had to
Fuck
get to
that.
work and I was able to get to work, but I had come face to face with my humanity prior to that point. Because for me, that's just what it took to get on the plane or to get in the helicopter or get in the truck or load up and stop moving towards a target was this come back with your shield or on it mentality. That's what it took for me to do it. And I think once you come face to face with your humanity and the potential consequences of your chosen profession, it can be a hard pill to swallow, but it also puts you in an amazing position to recognize that the details matter, that training matters, that my ability to focus on this small, annoying task that I've done 1,000 times matters because my attention to detail now, the effort I put in now, what I'm willing to sacrifice now, my level of discipline now is going to be what makes the difference between coming back with my shield or on it.
Everyone knows Nick's story. This dude came back to active service. He went through that shit, man. Recalibrated warrior. Love that fucking expression I got from Staff Sergeant Travis Mills. Quadruple amputee. Badass motherfucker out there. Nick came back. Nick came back, man. Who tried to talk you out of it?
Oh man.
Who closest to you?
Pretty much.
Like that? How do you see? No. This is what I'm born for. This is what I'm here for, man.
Yeah. Most people at a certain point tried to introduce some quote practicality into the discussion. And the irony about that, man, is when you're on your deathbed, in my case, literally like multiple different times, the people in your circle that care for you and love you, they will tell you just about anything to keep you in like a positive mental attitude. Right. So as I'm laying there, I'm like, I'm going back to the teams and I'm literally in critical condition in the intensive care unit
I think you're
dying.
just kind of saying that, all right?
They're like, of course you are, man.
Yeah, you
Like, yeah,
got
you can
this.
do
Yeah.
anything you need, put your mind to, like all that positive talk, which is beneficial. And I get it. And I've been there with my boys who
Mhm.
have been chopped up and blown to pieces many, many times. So it's natural and it can be a great thing. At a certain point, those exact same people, as you progress towards this goal, want to protect you from yourself and saying, hey, man, like you've put all your eggs in this basket. That isn't going to happen. So, like, as someone who cares about me, at what point do they try to introduce a little realism into the
Mm.
discussion? And, so that came around at a certain point with basically everybody. I'm talking my teammates, my
Mhm.
friends, my parents, people in my personal life, my professional life. At some point, they were like, dude, I don't know, man. I think maybe you need to start thinking a little bit more realistic. Expectation management was one of my kind of favorite terms I'd hear thrown my way. So most people around me did introduce that at a certain point. And for me to continue on my trajectory required me to see that through their lens, and that it wasn't from a place of me thinking I'm incapable. It was from a position of love. They were concerned about me failing at the impossible and what that would do to me, which I totally
Oof,
can respect and understand. So
that's some
I
heavy
could hear
shit.
that guidance or that those recommendations coming towards me from my father, for example, who's my best friend on this planet, and be like, you know what, Dad, I hear what you're saying. I respect what you're saying. I totally get it. I disagree, and I'm going to continue on my mission. And I know in today's
And
world, it can be a crazy concept to have people into your circle who you disagree with, but it can
of
actually
course,
be a very powerful thing.
dude. I have two things I want to get to, but I want to harp on that one for a minute. Feedback is a gift. Feedback is a gift, and once you realize how to give feedback and receive feedback, that changed everything. That was a big self awareness kind of epiphany eye opener for me. And the people that give you the radical candid feedback, the ones that are closest to you, the ones that aren't going to sugarcoat shit and tell you those are your homie. Those are your real friends.
Yeah.
Those, like, they're not going to just tell you what you want you to hear. They know you, and they're going to tell you the truth. Now, getting back to the story here, I'm sure there was people in the military that, for whatever reasons, were trying to push you away and trying to make this harder for you. But then there was the ones that wanted to see you come back and do this, and let everyone know out there, you had to pass a lot of tests. And I say a lot, I mean, what, like, you had to go back through, like, explain to everyone out there what you had to do to say, I am combat ready.
What I ended up needing to do ended up being about 12 or 13 weeks of different assessments and tests. Usually I do anywhere from like 2 to 4 a week for 12, 13 weeks. And that began during this time, I was working as an instructor teaching combatives and
Mhm.
close quarters combat at my unit. So, because I needed a job, I needed to provide value. And then concurrently, I was
And you were
training like
active.
a maniac. I'm active
Yeah.
duty.
Right.
I need to
But it kept
work.
you
And
mentally active.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm mentally and
Yeah.
physically active. Yeah. So I needed to provide, exactly. I needed to provide that value down and in. Like, I'm not just here to coast.
Right.
I need a job. And I requested that one and they gave it to me. And then concurrently, I was training like a lunatic to get back to the teams. And eventually, I let my command know that I was like, hey, so like, what am I going to need to do to be able to get back there? And they were like, you know what? Just like go do regular Army physical fitness test, just a standard Army PT test that any soldier has to take at least on an annual basis.
Right.
I did that, knocked it out, came back. I'm like, okay, cool. What else? They're
Now
like,
what?
oh, okay, fine. Go do this one. So it was very like nonchalant and kind of like they were
Okay.
just giving me things to do, not really thinking that I would complete them or that they would certainly ever get to a decision point where they had to seriously consider if they would put
They
me
didn't
back
think
in the
this was a
team.
real thing. Yeah.
No, but they felt like I had at least earned the ability to show what I could do. And they gave me that. And I'm very fortunate that they
Love
were able
this.
to do that. It was maybe like the third, fourth or so physical fitness test that I passed that the entire unit command team with some more senior individuals got down into a boardroom at Fort Bragg.
So, like,
And there were like 15 guys in a room. And they were like, all right,
this guy's
listen,
gonna do it, man. He could do it. Like, what are we gonna do here? Right?
they literally said, and
The fuck are we gonna do with this guy?
I've heard this story from multiple of these different guys' vantage points over the
Right.
years. And they said, all right, listen, this Nick guy, he is not going away. So we need to seriously figure out if there is anything that we would put in front of him that if he were to accomplish it, we would actually put him back on the team. Like, is there
They had
an
to make the
assessment?
test. You were the first one. They had to do some kind of assessment for you.
they ended up creating some new assessments, and they ended up putting me through historic assessments,
Mm.
and they really got outside the box, outside of just physical. I was doing proficiency evaluations,
Predecessor,
cognitive
man.
assessments, psychological screenings. Like, they really did their due diligence. And then, after 12, 13 weeks, they gave me the green light, and I was back on the team.
Did you, during this process, though, was there a thought like that you are laying the groundwork for other recalibrated warriors to rejoin
Dude,
active
I'll
duty?
tell you
Were you
honestly,
thinking about
man,
that at
I
all, or were
wasn't
you just
thinking about
focused?
that at
You were
all.
focused on
No,
yourself at that
that
point,
was it. Yeah,
and
it was
rightfully so.
really,
Rightfully so.
yeah, it was
No,
really self-centered. It was
but
about me getting back to
but in
doing
an
what I
okay
love.
way. But that's okay to be self-centered at that point. In my outside bullshit opinion here, because you were focused on you. And at that moment, it's you with the oxygen mask and putting it on. You had to do this for you. At the same breath, you also had to make sure that you were good enough physically and mentally to be a trustworthy team member, right? Was that going through your head too? That I have to show my trust to my team members that I could do this?
I'll tell you, it's a wild little story. I was pretty
Please.
late to the game to get to the point that you just said. Eventually I did, but I was actually already going through some of these assessments. I was like over a year after being wounded, back at Bragg, working as an instructor. I start going through these assessments. It was entirely based on me needing to get back to doing what I love to do. And this
Mm,
glorifying moment of getting back off the plane, back in Afghanistan with both my arms in the air, going, I'm back,
I
and you
did it.
messed up. You should have killed me when you had the chance. And like, now you're going to pay. That was on a loop
Wow.
daily
Fuck.
that
That's
got me
heavy.
through all the really hard things I had to do. And I'm not kidding. It was maybe 2-3 weeks into this assessment pipeline I ended up going through. I woke up in the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, next to my now wife. We weren't married yet. And I thought I was dying. Like, I thought my heart was racing. I'm sweating. Like, she's about to call 911. And I'm like, hold
Uh,
on, just give me a second. Let me get my bearings. And it was in that moment, Adam, that I realized I was going back to a team. And that's
right.
when it hit me. And the irony of that is I was physically around these guys every single day at work. Granted, I'm an instructor and they're doing
Mhm.
team guy life, but it's a very small little world we live
Pretty
in. So
close.
we're in the gym together. We're talking like, what's the next deployment? Like, I'm all interested. So I'm around these dudes constantly, yet I really didn't think of them in that lens until that point.
Mm.
And I felt horrible about myself. Just this wave of guilt hit me at 2:30 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Didn't sleep, went into work the next day, knocked on the team room door, asked them for 5 minutes. I said, guys, first off, I need to apologize that I really haven't thought about you or us through this lens until right now. And I feel horrible about it. And they're like, okay, well, like, what's going on? I said, listen, have you guys even like thought about me coming back here? Have you guys had that discussion? I am obsessed. For me, it's highly emotional. Therefore, logic
Yeah.
is going to be very, very low because, as we know, logic and emotion are antagonistic. It was highly emotional for me. And they said, listen, dude, we've talked about this like a dozen times. Like, we don't know if this is going to work, but we want to be the ones to decide if it does. So if you're able to get back here by some miracle, even though it's never happened before, we will be the first to tell you if you have a place on this team or not. Because at the end of the day,
It's
the
the
enemy
truth.
doesn't give a shit how many limbs you have. You are either an asset to that team or you are a liability. That's it. It is that cut and dry. And I said, all right, you know what? Roger that. So that was enough for me, Adam, to maintain in this kind of self funneled emotional state of hyper focus on achieving the next hard milestone because I knew I had my boys that I trusted that
That's
would be there to
huge.
look at this objectively and be able to tell me if or when it wasn't going to work.
God forbid, what if they said no? Would you be able to live with that?
I went into that conversation expecting them, these are my brothers who I love,
Yeah.
expecting them to be like, listen, we're so proud of you for what you've done to this point, but like, there isn't any spot for you on this team. I was expecting that to
You
be
were
the answer.
managing your expectations. Yeah. So
I think I had already set an expectation. Like, you know what? This is probably where this ends. And I got a different answer. And what that did for me was it took me to a whole nother level
I can't
because
even imagine the
what I was
trust.
thinking about going into like the third workout of the day was that glorifying self-centered moment of proving everybody wrong and proving myself right and all those things. Now, after this discussion with my boys, going into the gym for the third time in a day, I was thinking about my teammate's 5-year-old son.
Yep.
And it just took me to a whole nother level.
Hey everybody, Adam here from the Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen for any product in the space. They offer full solutions for hiring, managing, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyze a bunch of data from their fast food chains and created a trend report you could download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. There's a lot to dive into. Certainly check it out. And you can learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Thank you. Talk about a self-awareness epiphany right here, man. Right? Like now you're thinking of others when you're before you're thinking about yourself. Right? Like how is this going to affect my journey, going to affect their life? Am I being selfish? Like I can't even imagine the thoughts. I mean, I can't even put myself in your shoes. Right? Am I doing this for me? Am I doing this for them?
Yeah.
We're doing this for together. And then that's trust. Go back to what we talked about earlier. We trust. They trusted your physical and mental and skill set and all your capabilities to say, Nick is going to be a value add asset to our team. We're not just taking him back as a fucking charity case.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
That doesn't work in the military because no one's putting their life on the line from someone else from a bullshit fucking. You're only as strong as your weakest link is true as could possibly be in the military.
Yeah. I mean, and to use the trust thread a little bit farther,
Please,
it was both
dig in.
because they could put their trust in me, which they were able to do because they were physically there, seeing what I was doing, how I was training, the results, the outcomes. They had a front row seat to that. But then I was also able to put my trust in them to have that logical, objective vantage point. Significantly less emotion. Dude, some emotion, yeah, because they love me, but drastically less than I had. I could put my trust in them going, you know what? I'm going to give it my all here, and I'm either going to make it back or I'm going to die trying. That's it. And they're going to be the ones that are going to tell me no bullshit because there's no room for it if and when I made it far enough to be an asset on that team.
Take us back to that moment when you got greenlit. Take us back to that moment, man.
It was wild. My last assessment was another
story, man. You're incredible. Thanks, dude. I love you.
My last assessment was another physical one. It was a whole bunch of physical ones on the front, and then they started sprinkling in all these other kinds of evaluations, and then my final kind of Super Bowl.
Like, were they just making shit up at the end to test you?
Some stuff was way outside the box.
Like, let's see what this guy could do. Did they run you through? I'm sure they ran you through water. Like, let's get tactical here. How'd you do in water, right? How'd you do on mountain, inclined surfaces? Like, I'm trying to just think about all the things that might be. I mean, first of all, let's just be real here. You have the most badass prosthetic out there, right? Like, your shit is no joke, right? You got the military grade stuff.
It's legit, and I'm very blessed because of the technology that we have, which came on the backs of thousands of service members that were
couldn't
blown
have done 20 years ago,
wounded.
15 years ago.
Oh, forget about it. I'd
10
say,
years ago.
Dude, I live in the world of what's possible, but I also believe that without this technology, which again came from thousands of service members being blown up and losing limbs in early GWAT, therefore R&D skyrocketed, funding skyrocketed. The Vietnam era guys to us is like night and day difference.
They had wood arms and shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, stump on a stick, literally. That's like what they had. So without them making those sacrifices, the advancements in the field don't happen. I'm almost certainly not able to do what I did because I rely heavily on all this technology. But I can tell you, my last assessment was at Fort Bragg. It was a physical one. It was a test that the unit decided to create specifically for wounded guys that wanted to get back onto the team. Now they have since standardized it. So us wounded maniacs that wanted to get back into the game, by virtue of that, now all the other guys have to pass the same one. Because they were like, well, if we're going to make our injured guys do it, do we not maybe want our able-bodied guys to be able to do the same thing? So, and it's an ass kicker. I mean, it's a brutal physical assessment. And when I finished it, I was standing there on the verge of passing out. Okay. The whole thing's done with a 50-pound weighted vest. It's like a 12-event circuit. It's an ass kicker. And I'm standing there. I just finished, and I'm like losing peripheral vision. I mean, literally, I'm on the verge of like keeling over.
Jeez.
And our entire group command team is there. There's like 75, 80 dudes in the unit that just showed up that morning to like watch me do this test. Group command, sergeant major, like all of our highest ranking leaders
there. Yeah.
Everyone's there. My teammate, everyone's there. I go through it. I'm on the verge of passing out, standing there trying to look tough, like I could do it again if I needed to. And the group command sergeant major, who is the senior ranking enlisted leader of the unit, who really has the decision authority over personnel movement and like manning. So that my future is in this guy's hands. His name's Mark Eckert. Phenomenal dude. Retired about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. He comes up to me, and Mark had just taken the exact same test the day before with one of our other wounded guys, just kind of like as a battle buddy. He just did it with him, just to do it with him. Totally able body. Mark Eckert is absolute physical specimen. Okay. And I went in, I saw him that morning, the day before mine, and he's laid out on the turf, exhausted. And he looks up at me and he goes, "You're taking this test tomorrow, aren't you?" And I said, "Roger that, Sergeant Major." And he's like, "Okay, I'm going to be here." I'm like, "Perfect. Sounds good." Game day shows up. I knock it out. I'm standing there on the verge of passing out. Mark Eckert walks up to me and he goes, "I took this test yesterday." I said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "If I wasn't here with my own two eyes to watch you do what you just did, I would never have believed that was possible." And I look back at him. This is after 12 weeks of different assessments and tests. I've taken dozens and dozens and dozens of evaluations. I look back at him, I said, "Hey man, like I appreciate that, but like what else do you need me to do? Like for real? Like which is kind of a somewhat insubordinate thing to say to the group command sergeant major, me as a staff sergeant." So my teammates are chuckling because I'm talking to this guy like that. And he kind of smirks and he's like, okay. He looks over at the group commander, full board colonel, who says, "Hey, Sergeant Major, this is a manning decision. Nick's one of your guys. I leave this to you, but I don't know how we don't put him back on the team after what he just showed us he's able to do." And Mark Eckert looked back at me and said, "Oh, man, like I'll have your orders done by the end of the day. Come Monday, you'll report back to the ODA." And that was it.
What'd you do to celebrate? It's like winning the Stanley Cup, man. That's great.
It was a great moment. I celebrated most of it alone and then with my now wife. We of course I hug it out with the boys. We're all in the moment. And then I went home, got into an ice bath, got my mind and body back together. And then I just remember sitting on our couch with my now wife and just kind of, man, like that just happened. And then I spent the rest of the weekend just kind of, all right, like you're about to be at the bottom of a whole new mountain and like get your mind back in the game. It was a great win, pat on the back, celebrate with, a little bit of bourbon with my wife. And then now it's time to get back in the game.
Bourbon guy, man of my liking here. So we shared a little bit of that. Let's talk about what's happening now in society a little bit. I love your point of views. I love your takes here. And I see this firsthand. I don't know if it's a societal thing, this lack or degradation of two things: accountability and integrity. They go hand in hand to me, right? They're cousins. They go alongside of it. Now you could say it's social media, the instant gratification of social media, the bullshit that's out there in this TikTok world that's always on, like Insta famous kind of thing. Or is it family values? Is it the family structure? Are we not raising our kids the right way as parents? What's your perspective? And are you seeing it too? Like, I can't be the only one who's seeing it out there. Or let's call it what it is. If you put your political views aside and you're seeing politicians, regardless of whatever party you're in, saying one thing and doing another. I mean, that's been going on since the dawn of time, but such blatantly, like, are they leading by example? Or people looking to the top and say, well, if that person could do it, whether it be in corporate America or a politician, then why am I accountable? Why can't I do whatever the hell I want? I'm off my soapbox. Soapbox is yours.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say two things on both of those topics. One, as it pertains to accountability or ownership, it's a scarce commodity that you see within people. I would say it's rare. And it's rare because it's really hard to do. It's something that's easy to nod your head up and down about. But in real time, when you've got 5, 6, 7 seconds to decide how you're going to play this hand, like that's when the game's being played. And you're really working against yourself. You're working against biology. When you look at why is this so hard? It's because it's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
Meaning the second I think we recognize, Adam, that our emotional wellness is correlated directly to our physical health is the moment that this can become a realization for most of us. Because the human brain, above all else, wants to protect us. Our survival is the number one priority for the brain.
Our primitive brain is defense.
That's it. So like, how do I keep this entity living as long as humanly possible? That's the brain's number one responsibility. So when it comes time to accept the failure or the mistake or like that's going to hurt emotionally. And therefore, the brain is going to give us all of these reasons as to why it wasn't your fault. It's not the right time. You can cast blame here or there. It wasn't the right circumstances. I don't have the right genetics. I don't
Mm.
have the right socioeconomic conditions. Like, your brain is going to give you an endless list of reasons as to why, no, it's not, this isn't on you. It's on them or her or him or
No,
that
passing
thing
the
or
buck
that group.
bullshit. Yeah.
So like, you have to know that we're equipped with those off ramps. So when the pain kicks in, the discomfort of being like, ooh, that stings. Winners, certainly high performers, they use that discomfort as a catalyst to lean into it and say, I don't like this, but I control me and I influence within my sphere. What did I miss? Where could I have done better? What don't I know? Where are my gaps? And go the other direction. Most people are just going with the tide and
Mhm.
landing in that soft spot that's given to us. The outliers, to use that term of Scott, the
Yeah.
weirdos are leaning the other direction. But that goes against the grain. So ownership and accountability by design is difficult, which then
Hard.
therefore makes it rare, which then therefore makes it scarce, which then therefore makes it incredibly high value. Things that are
Such high
of
value.
what's that?
Such high value. Such
Such
high
high value.
value.
Most things that are scarce have a high value. Like, there's a
Dude,
reason why diamonds are worth more than pebbles. It's just there's just not a lot of them. So when scarcity is at play, oftentimes it increases the value. So I think when you can recognize that and go, damn,
mm,
if I want to stand apart, if I want to be different, if I want to win and be successful, and like all these terms, which can be defined however you want, these are all amazing opportunities to do that. You just have to have the mental toughness to lean into that pain, which I think we're equipped to do so by understanding why it's so difficult. So yeah,
yeah.
it's absolutely a
Right.
weapon. It's an individual choice on when you choose to take on that discomfort and leverage it.
And I was smirking about 45 seconds ago because it kind of dawned on me, like, when a friend or a loved one owns up to something, right? And usually like a buddy, right? Like, and maybe it's a buddy that's not their MO, right? And you're like, damn, good on you, Nick. You own that shit, right? Like, you fucked up. You did something wrong. Maybe you could have done something different, whether in personal life, romance, whatever it is. You're like, you know what? Good on you. Like, it's such a, and that's why it's powerful, because it's scarce, because people aren't owning their shit, because it's not a natural thing to do. So let's flip it. Let's flip it here a little bit. We're both fathers of young boys here. How, what's your parenting style? How do you teach your kids accountability? How do you teach them at such an age? Because it's tough. They're little kids. They're little boys. They're little girls. They're trying to figure it out. They're learning the rules of the playground and the classroom. But we want to instill those values. And what are some tactical ways that you work with your son?
I think one of the greatest mistakes we can make is by threatening something as a potential consequence and then not following through on that
Oh
when
yeah.
they mess up. So, for example, if you don't do this, I'm taking away your tablet for a week. Okay. Then the kid doesn't do the thing and comes back, and you're like, all right, you know what? Like, whatever, here's your tablet. Like, that registers with them. All right.
Get
They
away with
know you have to uphold that end of the bargain and say, listen, I bought this thing because I want you to be able to leverage it and have fun with it and learn with it and
Right.
whatever. This is just a random example, but like, here's the standard, okay?
Mhm.
And if it's your choice whether or not you uphold that standard, whether it's doing your homework at a certain time or putting your plate in the sink after
Right.
dinner, like whatever it is that you're suggesting or telling them, like, this is what's expected of you. This is the standard. Cool. When that doesn't get met based on your choices, here are the consequences. And then the kid's screaming. You just
Yep.
want to be able to focus on your phone or your email or
Right.
the show you're watching or the workout you're trying to do. And
Just
you're
take
like,
it
you know
back.
what? Here, take the tablet and get away from me. Like,
No.
we've been there. I totally get how easy we can succumb to that, which is why ownership begins and ends with us.
Hmm.
That's what the beauty of this concept, man. As you mentioned, one element, and that's the effect it has on others. When you see someone that takes accountability for their mistakes or for the situation or the shortcomings, or the team loses and that leader or that person's like, you know what, man, this is on me and here's why. And here's what I'm going to do to get better. And here's how I think we can get better. That's a great thing external into us. But us outwardly, ownership gives us control, which is something that most of us are looking to get as much of as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And that's not egotistical. It's not arrogant. I just want to control as many factors as I can. And ownership is the concept of you control you, and that's it. It's rooted in stoicism. This is like Marcus Aurelius,
Yeah, this is
Seneca. This is shit that's been around thousands and thousands of years. That's not going away anytime soon. You control you in the face of
Mhm.
chaos, in the face of failure, even in the face of victory. You
You control
control
the
you.
act
And more specifically, you control your actions, your attitude, and your effort. That's it.
and your reaction. Yeah.
Which I would say
Which
is part of
actions?
your actions. Yeah.
Of
So,
course.
like, those are, I'd say, those three primary buckets. And there's
Yeah.
certainly more we could add. But if you hone in on that in the face of chaos and setbacks and whatever, it always begins with me. I control my actions, my attitude, my effort. And then from there, it's who or what can I influence, which has a limit to that as well. So,
Of
that
course.
loop of internal control to external influence and around we go, I think is really the way to go. And my mission, my goal is to instill that into a 7-year-old, and then not so long behind him, my 4-year-old,
Oh, yeah.
which again is easier said than done. But to
Dude.
give people a tactical recommendation, if you're going to put something out there as you are setting the standard and the consequence if you fail to meet that standard, big, small, indifferent, whatever,
Mhm.
you have to uphold your end of that deal, which is going to hurt you. It's going to hurt them, but you got it.
Let me
That's your time to play the
All right,
game.
I'm gonna share a quick one one day. I think you'll appreciate this. This is probably about 4 months ago. Son was giving me a hard time with his iPad. He was being a pain in the ass. His iPad was done. He wanted more of it. He was doing things he shouldn't be doing. And I don't know what was going on in my day. I don't know what was going on in my head, but I reached the limit of the fucking iPad. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You reach that iPad limit. And I took that iPad and I smashed the shit out of it over the metal coffee table. That kid was in shock.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? We haven't gotten back to that point again. And my wife my wife at the time, my current wife, she walked in right afterwards, and it finally resonated with her a bit that, you know what, that had to get done, and I haven't crossed back on that line. And now my son understands the rules with the iPad for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm upset at myself of how I reacted, but there had to be a release. And I'm not saying it was right or wrong, right? You don't want certain things you don't want to do in front of the kids. Like I feel I don't know if it's shamed or embarrassed, but I also uphold that, like, he pushed it over the line. Did I scare him? Right. So I'm still battling this a little bit, but at that point we haven't crossed back into that.
Yeah, and
That was a tough.
I think the concept of choices and outcomes or consequences is up to you. And
I
my
own it.
job, part of my job anyway, is to give you the opportunity, like we talked about earlier, when it comes to trust and enabling others and empowering others, whether it's your 7-year-old son or one of your colleagues in the
Yeah.
office or one of your teammates in the team room. You give them the opportunity. You clearly define the intent, the expectation, the standard, the desired end state, the expanded purpose. Here's what needs to happen, and here's why.
Yeah.
When you're done eating, you just scrape your plate in the garbage and put your stuff in the sink. That's it. Okay, got it. When that doesn't get upheld, there are going to be consequences. Now, whether that means you go off the rails and take an iPad and smash it into pieces,
Yeah. Not
or
proud of that,
you grab
but
them and say, hey, get back over here and handle your business. Maybe
finish
that's all
it.
it takes. But the point is
We're
that
learning as
you are
parents.
consciously aware of that loop, and no one's batting 1,000. Certainly
No.
not me. Certainly not when it comes to being a
Exactly.
parent. No one's batting 1,000. I'll go overboard. I'll go
Yeah.
underboard. I'm rarely am I landing
But we're also
directly
learning
on
as
this
parents,
line.
right? We're learning. It's a learning. We didn't do this before.
Constantly learning.
We're not. I say to my wife all the time, I'm like, I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try to bat for get on base, but listen, I'm gonna strike out sometimes. I'm gonna make mistakes. No one's perfect here. So let's talk about what's happening now. What's your mission these days? What are you working on, Nick?
Oh man, my mission is, I guess, multifaceted, but also, I guess, quite simple. I have the very distinct privilege and pleasure to have identified what my post-military service professional purpose will be, and furthermore, have the chance to start building a foundation and messing it up now. So what I had was kind of this little passion project that's really turned into my second full-time professional life, which is amazing. One of the greatest challenges I have is there's only 24 hours in a day, and I love all the things that I get to do. Um, Military service, I'm coming up on 20 years, so I'll probably start retiring here pretty soon, but I still have a lot to learn serving in the uniform as a
Mm-hmm.
leader, as a person of influence, as a mentor, as someone who spent the bulk of my time on the teams, being that tactical asset, going to solve complex problems in really challenging locations. the only thing I really ever wanted to do. And now I have the awesome privilege of being more of a means of influence and guidance and mentorship. And that's a whole different challenge. And while you will forever miss being that true tactical on the ground asset, as you kind of elevate at echelon, your sphere of influence broadens. You lose a little bit of intimacy with the true tactical level, but it gets wider. And now, I mean, I've got, 1,000 plus young Green Berets that I get to mentor and guide. And just how amazing is that?
Yeah.
So forever being a student of the game in the uniform as well. And then how I translate that into my work in the private sector. And as we get to work with different companies and individuals across the country is just wild. And what I've seen is the undeniable themes across high performing individuals and organizations. It doesn't matter what you do. You could be a professional athlete, you could be corporate, you could be law enforcement, military, run a nonprofit. It's like the same themes apply. And there's some that we've talked about here already today. It's work ethic, it's discipline, it's sacrifice, it's humility. Like these tenets aren't going away, which is why I felt compelled to write a book based on those themes.
What did you learn about yourself from the process of writing this book?
Oh, man,
the book writing process.
Yeah, it was a wild journey to go on. One of the more simple things that jumped out is that I actually really enjoy writing. I don't think I had written something that I was truly passionate about ever before in my life. So writing for me was a chore. It was something I had to do for work or for school or like whatever. I just want to get it over with. Writing a book for me was like, I got obsessed with it. And, I realized that there's a huge difference between writing for something that you love and want to sink your teeth into versus, hey man, whip up this, 17-page research paper on topic X. Right. But also because I had to go deep into self-reflection and analysis to give the reader that kind of context, it was a emotional roller coaster ride I went on myself as I was interviewing teammates and family members and friends. Like, what were you seeing? Forget about, don't tell me what you think. Yeah. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear or need to hear to make the book good. Like, forget about that. During this window of time, what were you noticing of me and the things I was doing and how I was doing it from your vantage point? And having some great people around me, they don't sugarcoat things. It's like, this is the raw truth. And I was like, oh damn, like whole different vantage point, reading through my journals, my training logs. So it was its own journey of kind of self-reflection while I was doing it in real time.
Yeah, I want everyone to check out Objective Secure. We'll link that up in the show notes here. You got 5 for us to wrap here? I know we're approaching on 2:30 here.
Yes, sir.
Let's bring it home here. Nick, what's keeping you up at night these days?
What keeps me up at night is how can I be a better asset to serve the people around me? It's a great, almost never-ending problem to have where satisfaction doesn't exist. That's a double-edged sword. And I want to be very clear. Satisfaction and fulfillment, I would argue, are two entirely different things. Satisfaction in terms of being content with your current status or kind of where you're at. I will almost certainly never be satisfied with where I am. Not as a husband, not as a dad, not as an entrepreneur, not as a soldier.
I think it's part of ambition too.
I would say it's deeply rooted in ambition.
It's deeply ambition, self-worth, all those things.
Yeah, so I spend most nights trying to fall asleep, and certainly my thoughts throughout the day is just how can I be a better asset to the people that are depending on me in business, in my personal life, my life as a service member with my friends and colleagues. And that loop just kind of keeps going around and around and around. And that's what a blessed place to be in, where I live a professional life in the uniform where literally my job is to serve others. Those are my team, those within my unit, the American people, our partners, our allies. Like that's what we do professionally. And then I built a business around providing value in very similar ways. Just swap out a rifle with a microphone or a keyboard. Like at the end of the day, you're trying to make people better and you're trying to help people be better at whatever they're trying to do. So like, that's what keeps me up at night is how can I be a better servant to others? And that loop just keeps going around, man.
Thanks for sharing, man. I'm going to put a spin on this one. One of my classics. I'm going to go to the number. I'm going to go to number 2. I'm going to go to the curveball over here. I'll show my pitch. What is that single greatest piece of advice you've ever received that you take action on every day? Not some mantra, but like actionable. Maybe it's
Single
something from your military time that you're now doing in your civilian life. Well, will be.
Yeah, I would say one of the greatest that I can think of in this moment comes from my father. It really speaks to the importance of work ethic.
Mm.
And one of the things he said to me as a young kid, as he still says to me today, is, "I don't care if you are a ditch digger, but you better be the best ditch digger in the valley." And that speaks of multi levels to me, the importance of hard work, but being a person of your word, being a man of integrity, a word that you mentioned that we didn't dive too deep into. But when you say you're going to do something,
Fucking
you
do
do
it.
it,
That's
right?
it.
There's going to be times when
That's
you
it.
are excited to do it. More often than not, there's going to be times when you don't want to do it. But you said you're going to do it. Your word is your bond. Show up, do it to your best of your ability. And if you no longer want to dig ditches, fine. Find another alternative and then work towards that and then be the best at that.
Fuck yeah, man. Right? Integrity. Like it comes back to that. And like, let's get back to that for a quick second before we wrap up. Like, my standard for my friends are keeping their word. All of us, we hold ourselves accountable, right? Those are my closest friends. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. I teach that to my kids. Hey, you said even something minor. Hey, you said when we were done playing that video game, you're going to go put your laundry away. You said you were going to do it, so do it. Teach them with actionable things that are not life altering. Like go put your fucking clothes away. You said you were going to do it, right? And I want to embody that with them with their friends and how they choose their friends. And my wife and I try to do that by leading by example.
Mm,
And dude, my daughter's doing the coolest thing right now. She's 12, turning 13, very impressionable, turning into a little lady, all that kind of
mm,
stuff, right? And she made the conscious decision. She doesn't need to be, and she's beautiful child. And she's cool. She's so cool. She doesn't need to be with the cool kids. She made the conscious decision to be with friends that she enjoys hanging out with, not for status or anything. And my wife and I watch this. We're like, and I had a conversation with the car the other day, and I was alluding to it, and I was like, "This is awesome that you did." She's like, "Yeah, I see you and mom and dad how you are with your friends." And I was like,
amazing.
all right, okay, I'm doing something right here. I may smash a shit on my kid's iPad, but you know what? At least. So, Nick, last but not least, all right, let's bring it home here. Success is a broad word. Everyone has their own definition of it. You've been at the bottom of that shit pit, man. Literally, the bottom of that shit pit. You clawed your way back up. You had to dig down deep. You had to harness that tenacity, and you succeeded. You came back. Nick, how do you define success?
Mm. If I were to put success as an equation, I'd say there's three ingredients that equal success to me: accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment, and integrity. All right. Accomplishment, meaning that it's not given to you, it's earned. Okay. If someone hands me $1 million, like that's not success. I may enjoy it.
It's luck.
Success is earned. Okay. So accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment, because, and I've learned this the hard way, you can check all the boxes of goals and all these metrics and be miserable at the same time. And in that sense, like, what's the point? Like life is finite, man. I'm not saying that we need to be happy all the time, but a sense of fulfillment, I think that comes by virtue of passion and purpose and a sense of autonomy and mastery, more so than happy, but fulfilling. All right. I'm fulfilled at times, at least the majority of the time,
Right.
I'm fulfilled. So accomplishment, fulfillment, and then integrity, because and we'll wrap this up with what we just mentioned. I think if
Man.
you stack up all the wins, you summit all the mountaintops, but in the process of doing so, you have smashed on the faces and stepped on the shoulders of people around you, some of which you care about. And in the process, you've destroyed who you are. You've burned your values. You've thrown your ethics and your morals into the garbage can, and you're standing on top of this mountaintop. Who cares?
What's the
Like,
point?
what's the point? So, and your listeners have to know that if you are going to go about winning and success by operationalizing integrity and doing it the right way, it is going to be more difficult to win because not everybody plays by those rules. It is going to be more difficult to win, but I would argue that it does make it worthwhile.
Fuck Yeah. Nothing worthwhile is easy. Nothing, man. And when you do something the right way, it just feels the right way. Doing the right thing is the right thing. Like, it sounds so corny, but it's fucking true, man. And we try to teach that. Nick, I want to thank you deeply for your time. And I do want to thank you for your service, because freedom ain't free. And thank you for sharing your perspectives. We are all lucky to have you here protecting us, teaching the future of those that are protecting us, and leading the way. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Everyone, we're going to link up all the links in the comments. Check out his personal development lifestyle brand, Team Machine. We're going to link it up. The Forge. What's a Forge? Members only coaching and community platform. Oh, I didn't put my cool music on. There we go. We need some music there. We got to wrap that up with some music. Where else could they find you? Where could they connect? Where could they learn more, Nick? What am I missing here?
Yeah, the one-stop shop is teammachine.com. It's got access to all the socials, the YouTubes, the ways to get a hold of me and my team for whatever you're interested in, man.
This is the good stuff, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. If this show meant something, leave a review. Rating it goes a long way. Sharing means caring. You know where to find out more at thepodcast.com. Follow us on social media channels. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.